Now, when we see attack ads paid for by Big Pharma, my dad smiles and says to me, you know, we're doing something really right if they're hitting us so.
In a mere 19 blistering seconds, the howl of a live studio was taken in by a choking silence as 40 million Americans saw Jasmine Crockett bang a photograph down on Trump. In a blazing white suit at Diddy's notorious white party, hand clasped with a man now under FBI scrutiny. His smirk melted away, eyes scanning like a caged animal. What went down that evening, and why might it still bring down an ex-president today? The cameras roared first, gliding across the buff floor like raptors, the LED wall in back clicking. Away like a countdown to a detonation. The entire studio was electric reporters, furiously writing last-minute notes while eyeing each other's expressions. Protesters clutching stash signs, political strategists running through the spin they'd serve up to the media. In the shadows behind the curtain, Jasmine clicked her leather folio to the beat of the red flash of tally lights, serene but tensed for the strike. On the opposite side of the stage, Trump leaned against his lectern as if it were his own hearth, smiling into a monitor as if already the winner. The front row contained a retired Marine and a church deacon beside him, their gazes steady. And behind them, the hoodie of a student commanded justice for all. A stagehand's hushed comment, White Party Hamptons. That guest list, clenched. Jasmine's fingers are on her folio. Her aide's message glowed all green for segment 2. Her response, a single dot, stand by. 30 seconds ticked by on the clock. George Stephanopoulos emerged, voice warm but cutting. The applause light flashed, and royal blue illumination flooded the stage. Throughout the country, TV sound went up as theme music struck. Trump walked out on cue, basking in applause, looking left and right like a monarch welcoming his court. Jasmine emerged, no smile, no, not only a silent, unblinking gaze that cut through the din. And at the bottom of it all, those two words, White Party, rang like a fuse lighting towards detonation. The moderator's opening question, immigration. Policy tossed cameras to Trump, who leaned in with the confidence of a man sure the stage was his, slicing the air with his hands as he depicted an apocalypse of open borders and crime. After a pause for dramatic effect, he sneered at Jasmine. This congresswoman is too soft, too naive. She believes hugs and hope will end crime. A wave of laughter rippled through pockets of the crowd. Jasmine didn't bite. She held a moment until Trump assumed he'd connected. Then she leaned in, locked eyes. Mr. Trump, facts aren't soft, and some facts, like who you hung out with, never get old. The atmosphere changed. Spine stiffened. Softly, she presented the kind of figures not often heard from a debate podium than national average. Immigrant arrest rates, billions in yearly taxes paid, thousands of businesses from scratch. Her words created snapshots. A farm worker's calloused hands loading fruits onto American tables. A nurse who was once in the shadows, now saving lives on the ICU. A soldier immigrant born laid beneath the flag he took an oath to defend. Some members of the audience nodded involuntarily. Others folded their arms, standing firm. A seam of tension was visible across the room. Each camera operator was certain what to frame. The collision of conviction and resistance, fixed and irrevocable. Contrast. Trump shook his head, interrupting with a dismissive, "That's emotional. Sweet, but not realistic." His words faltered when Jasmine looked him straight in the eye and retorted, voice firm as steel. "Realistic is knowing fear doesn't make U.S. safe. Truth does." The room went into suspended animation. No coughing, no rustling of papers, only the weight of two wills not wanting to give. Even Trump paused before settling back as though momentarily derailed. The moderator cleared his throat and continued, but Jasmine's attention wavered. Her hand touched the side of her bag, where she could feel the plain folder with a solitary white sticker, a secret cue. No one paid attention, but she had a keen sense of when it would count. To her, the mission was self-evident. This evening wasn't policy, it was truth. Trump, clueless, leaned forward with that smug smile, surveying her attire from the top of her head to her ankles. "Nice jacket," he smirked with dripping sarcasm. "Guess they don't pay you well in Congress." A few laughed, others flinched at the shot. He continued, sweet speeches, no actual outcomes. Jasmine drew out the silence until it became uncomfortable, the cameras almost humming with expectation. Trump shifted, his smile wavering. When she finally broke the silence, her voice was measured but laced with challenge. "If you want to discuss. Who knows, America? Let's discuss the people you surround yourself with." The atmosphere in the room changed at once, murmurs moving through the crowd. Trump feigned confusion, but the tight jaw and narrowed eyes betrayed him. Jasmine tilted her head like a chess player sensing checkmate. "Don't worry, we'll get there. The Hamptons always comes back around." Her fingers lingered on the folder, not opening it, just letting the idea hang. Trump's laugh rang thin, his hand reaching for water, cameras catching the flicker. In his eyes, Jasmine inched forward again, low and measured. "You recall the Hamptons? The White Party? And who was standing next to you that evening?" The phrases struck like shattered glass. Whispers, raised eyebrows, even a micked up. Oh no, she didn't, in row 3. For an instant, Trump's facade cracked the clenched jaw, the narrowed eyes before reforming instantly. But the cameras recorded it. Jasmine didn't push yet. She sat back, eyes fixed. Funny how one evening all those years ago can still make the most powerful man in the room wince. The moderator paused, the audience humming, millions watching at home, leaning in. Now it wasn't about policy, it was about something more. Why that evening still unsettled him. Jasmine's tone became nearly playful. The Hamptons, white suits, a guest list you probably wish you could rewrite. Trump froze, looking toward his attorney for rescue, lips opening and closing without speaking. The silence was a verdict in itself. Across the country, in VFW halls, college dorms, church basements, and sports bars, people leaned forward, smelling panic behind the bluster. Social media erupted. The hashtag White Party contract trended immediately, looping his hesitation with close-up shots of his autograph. Newsrooms handled it as a political earthquake, analysts tracing linkages in real time, and even his strongest. Supporters on Fox showed cracks in their confidence. Among the halls of Mar-a-Lago, aides huddled like bereaved at a crime scene. In Pittsburgh, steelworkers rewound the clip, awed that Jasmine hadn't merely gone up against Trump. She had made him small. And as the contract radiated its warm glow in the background under the hot studio lights, the nation's living rooms became microcosmic newsrooms, all asking one thing. If this was exposed in the light, what else remained concealed in the shadows? From coast to coast, families watched on glowing screens, bowl of popcorn clutched in hand, channel surfing, texting friends, arguing, debating, and cheering. In quiet corners, a Kansas diner, an Atlanta barbershop, individuals crowded around telephones to see the replay. On Twitter and TikTok, Contract 8 went viral, clips remixed with bombastic music, subtitles, and fiery slow-motion zooms on. Trump's still face. Late-night talk show host pounced Jimmy Kimmel, calling it the pause heard around the world. Stephen Colbert wisecracking. Turns out the one thing Trump won't talk over is his own signature on an FBI file. Below the laughter, there was a charge to the air, a feeling that something had changed. Backstage, Jasmine sat alone for the first time all night, the roar of the crowd replaced by the hum of her heartbeat. Her aide slipped in, phone trembling in their hand. You're going viral? Millions of views, comments pouring in. Jasmine? Didn't grin or gloat? She simply whispered, good, let them all watch. Because in her world, every supporter and every enemy was watching, and both could be equally dangerous. She stood by herself in the dressing room, the bright bulbs harsh against her skin. She looked at herself, feeling the burden of what had just transpired. Memories flooded standing in a small community center years earlier, upholding a young mother's home. Yelling over rain at a small rally with no reporters. Her father's calm voice speaking to her. Make them listen. Tonight she had. This wasn't about revealing one man. It was evidence that power could be challenged in the daylight. Her phone vibrated again, a text from a stranger. You made me think about standing up again. The storm in front of her would be ferocious, but she'd weathered storms before. Stepping back into the studio, she spoke briefly, like a cutting edge. Knife cutting through air. Power without accountability is a threat to every American. If we remain silent when we know the truth, on whose side are we actually on? The question hung in the air, reaching far beyond the cameras. Bravo, and amen. No. Applauded, driving her off stage, sprinting into the hallway like a commitment fulfilled. The last shot trapped her silhouette, vanishing into the darkness head high. Shoulders squariosito, but sometimes the most powerful thing isn't in being the loudest, but in having the courage to speak the truth when the entire room demands you remain silent container gap, and when your time arrives, the decision will be yours. Remain silent or stand. The air in the studio grew thick, the lights hotter. She offered the audience only a tease. Some of those guests aren't with us anymore. And some can't defend themselves even if they wanted to. Trump rejoined with a quick fake news. Louder, higher, the repetition of a man attempting to persuade himself. Behind the desk, Stephanopoulos waved to the producer. Remain on this line. Camera zoomed in, capturing each twitch, each inflection. Jasmine's eyes remained fixed on him, her voice measured and slow. The company you keep says a great deal about the kind of leader you are. Heads turned, whispers swelled. Trump pointed a finger at her. You're lying. You have no idea what you're saying. But his agitated stance revealed a different tale. Jasmine's mouth twitched with the briefest smile. Perhaps not. Or perhaps. I do know precisely what I am saying. Gasps, nervous laughter, and whispers hung in the air. The moderator attempted to bring things back on track. But the room was hooked. Jasmine had planted them with the whiff of something more. And now the chase was afoot. Miles away in Brooklyn, Marcus Shade Johnson sat on a beat-up leather couch, TV light dancing across his gold chain. When the white party came up, he stood up straight, eyes squinting like he'd just seen a ghost. Without thinking, he grabbed his phone. I was there that night. Call me if you need me. The news zinged across the ether, arriving in the hands of Jasmine's assistant like a rope thrown in a hurricane dot in the studio. The commercial break came first. The crowd murmured some whispering speculation. Others gaping at Jasmine as if she'd broken open a safe on live television. The studio lights faded. But the tension only wound tighter, coiled like a spring that waited to snap. Jasmine's assistant eased between the tangle of cables and crew. Phone clutched in her hand and bent to whisper Shade was on site, and he would stand behind her. Jasmine's eyes didn't open wide with shock. They brightened with recognition. Shoulders eased, spine stiffened. This was the bullet she had been waiting for. She was no longer alone. She had a believable witness who could turn rumors into undisputable fact. Trump's smile wavered on the other side of the stage. He moved closer to his attorney in the front row, their silent conversation carrying the pungent aroma of damage control. The countdown to cameras back on continued, and Jasmine's small smile foretold of a battle she now felt confident about. Winning. When the red tally light blinked alive, Trump tried steering the debate into safe territory with talk of the economy. But Jasmine's reply sliced through the air. We'll get to the economy. But first, let's finish that night in the Hamptons. The audience straightened, the press row came alive, and hashtags were born before Trump could even blink. His laugh was brittle, his denial reed thin, his eyes flicking between Jasmine, the cameras, and his stone-faced lawyer. Jasmine continued on, creating a vivid tableau: white tents, champagne towers, linen-suited men of power who believed themselves invincible, and Trump in a blinding white suit at an exclusive table. She allowed the silence to linger before remembering a handshake with a man subsequently indicted for money laundering, tax evasion, and worse. Trump's response was quick, too quick, his words racing to beat a memory. Stephanopoulos interrupted. Did he deny showing up? Trump evaded, labeling it political theater, but the pause stuck with him like smoke. Television audiences across America leaned forward, retired Marines, Bible study groups, college dorm rooms, each feeling the air had shifted. In newsrooms, tweets went viral. Jasmine Crockett just cracked open something big. This isn't over. Back in the studio, the control room focused on Jasmine, aware that they had a live moment. Trump's smile was a strained mask now, his hold on the podium more desperation than strength, while social media feeds, hashtags, TikToks, and Reddit forums savaged the Hamptons night. Fueling the wildfire Jasmine had kindled so recently, the din of the crowd had grown beyond the debate itself. Journalists frenziedly typing out tweets as shiny screens glinted in their eyeglasses. Jasmine understood this was not a bump in the polls or a viral moment of soundbite quality. It was that kind of moment that would haunt a man's career for the rest of his life. She didn't prod. She allowed the tension to breathe, aware that the question now was no longer whether she had hit a nerve, but how far she was going to cut and how much the nation was prepared to bleed. Quietly, she slid a solitary grainy photo from her folder too. Men in white, one unmistakably Donald Trump, the other notorious from headlines and indictments. The crowd gasped, phones flashed, and Twitter exploded in real time. Trump laughed too loudly, waving it off as Photoshop, but deflected the look of the picture. Jasmine, unperturbed, noted its eerie similarity to a notorious Hamptons white party. And then there was the reveal Marcus Shaw Johnson, the rap activist who'd been present, emerging on stage like a man with dangerous truth to tell, followed by Tasha Green, a former event staff member with a battered old camera she said contained never before seen proof. The atmosphere was heavy. She pulled out a sealed envelope and presented it to Jasmine, who revealed a crystal photo of Trump in a white suit shaking hands with now imprisoned man. With Diddy blurred out in the background, the room exploded gasps, screams, frantic typing. From the press, while Trump's smile wavered under the lights. Jasmine's voice pierced through the bedlam. How many of those individuals are under indictment? How many parties remained off the record? The photo hung on the large screen like a trial exhibit. The debate stage now a courtroom, and the opening frames of a tale that was very much still playing out. The actual ammunition remained in Jasmine's hands, and as Trump floundered for words, the eyes of the audience flashed to the photo behind him, analyzing every pixel like forensic experts. At that moment, the argument ceased to be about immigration or economics. It was about one night in the Hamptons and the individuals who were so desperate to make it disappear. The silence sliced before Jasmine cautioned the audience. If you think this photo paints the whole picture, you ain't seen nothing yet. A pause so acute that the room had to catch its breath. Trump was quick to dismiss it as political theater, accusing a random event worker of being on a quest for fame. His hand cutting through the air like that could wipe away the image still lingering on the big screen. Lara Ingraham appeared on split screen, framing it as a smear campaign, but Jasmine did not move, allowing him to speak himself into a corner. The energy of the room changed, supporters folding their arms, others leaning forward into Jasmine until she quietly commented, "You haven't denied what's in the photo?" The internet exploded within minutes. The hashtag White Party Witness blowing past hurricane news, memes, and slowed down clips exaggerating every twitch of Trump's face. Around the country, responses divided along ratty lines, truckers stuck. Mid-bite, couples sitting in stony silence, office arguments fired up. Cable news replayed it nonstop, while Jasmine's war room debated whether to drop the final piece or let Trump sweat. His team scrambled with denials, but the image lingered like an uninvited guest, impossible to ignore. Back on stage, Jasmine released a fresh bomb. It wasn't just a handshake. There was a deal. The word sent ripples through the hall, Trump's smile wavering just before he waved it aside as ridiculous, though his hold on the podium betrayed him. She went on, "What if I told you there's a paper trail?" And the censor camera picked up the spasm in his hand as the audience gasped. Phones filming, hashtags piling up, Trump again denied. But with an edge that came near to begging, Jasmine's tiny smile re-emerged as she gazed directly into the camera. What if the paper trail takes the road straight to him? The hall fell silent, photographers taking their breath, and somewhere in America, millions crept closer to their monitors, anticipating the next punch. Jasmine grasped a thin manila folder and set it on the podium with careful deliberation, her fingers running over the clasp as she glared at Trump. "Fairy tales?" She murmured, "Let's see how nonfiction goes down." She unfolded it to display a creased FBI-stamped photocopy of a contract. Now looming behind her on the large screen, two signatures, Donald J. Trump and the charged businessman's shell company. The studio went quiet before it exploded in gasps and frantic typing. Trump struggled to force a smile, denouncing it as fake, but his voice rising higher than before. Jasmine simply calmly pointed at the date August 14th, 2015, White Party night. Cameras recorded the flicker in his eyes. The rigid shoulders. When Stephanopoulos asked bluntly, "Is this your signature?"